Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a never-ending cycle? That's exactly how I was living. Every morning, I'd wake up to the alarm dragging me out of bed. I'd take the same crowded bus, arrive at work already exhausted before the day had even begun, and spend my time doing repetitive tasks for a salary that barely covered the bills. The end of the month was always a nightmare. Bills piled on the table, a maxed-out credit card, and the fridge almost empty. The truth is, I worked hard, but it seemed like the harder I tried, the further I was from stability. I was always chasing money, but it never seemed to chase me. Until one day, everything changed. I was at a bookstore looking for something to help me get out of that hole, when my eyes landed on a book with a title that caught my attention like a sign: Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I picked it up with no great expectations, just that tiny thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way out. That very night I started reading, and it was like a blindfold had been lifted from my eyes. I realized the problem wasn't how much I earned, it was how I thought about money. I discovered there's a huge difference between working for money and making money work for you. Kiyosaki talked about two fathers, one poor, who believed in studying, getting a job and working until retirement, and one rich, who taught about investing, understanding assets and liabilities, and seeking financial freedom. With each page, I saw myself more and more in that story. It felt like Kiyosaki himself was speaking to me. You don't have to accept this life. There is a way, but you're going to have to change the way you think. And right there, on that ordinary night, with an old book in my hands, began the transformation that would change everything. After finishing Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one sentence echoed in my mind for days: the poor work for money. The rich have money work for them. At first, I admit I was even a little mad. What do you mean, don't work for money? I was killing myself working, and still, it was never enough. It sounded absurd. But then I began to understand what Kiyosaki really meant. He wasn't saying that working is wrong. On the contrary, the problem is when you rely only on your time to make money. You know that famous idea of trading hours for dollars? Yeah, that has a limit. And that's when it hit me. My job had a ceiling, and it was a very low one. If I wanted to earn more, I'd have to work more hours. But there are only 24 hours in a day. I was already at my physical and mental limit. And even if I found a second job, how long could I keep it up? A month, two? At what cost? That's when I learned about the concept of passive income. Imagine that instead of working the whole month just to get a paycheck, you had something that made money even while you sleep. It could be rental income, stock dividends, profits from a business that doesn't require your constant presence. That's the secret the wealthy know and use. They plant today to harvest forever. I thought, okay, but where do I start? I don't even have savings. But Kiyosaki was clear. The first step isn't money. It's a shift in mindset. Stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like someone who's building something. Even if you need to stay at your job for now, it should only be a bridge, not the final destination. That week, instead of wasting my free time watching TV or complaining about life, I started studying. I researched investments, businesses, financial education. Every free moment became an opportunity to build my freedom. And the biggest lesson I took from that phase was, if you want freedom, you have to stop living only for the next paycheck. You need to build something that keeps bearing fruit, even when you're not around. Once I understood that relying solely on a salary was a silent trap, came the question that changed everything. So how do I create passive income? Robert Kiyosaki explained there are two main paths: entrepreneurship or investing. And when I heard the word entrepreneurship, I admit I felt a chill. My mind was immediately filled with doubts. But I don't have the money to start a business, and I have no idea where to begin. That's when I learned something valuable. Being an entrepreneur doesn't mean starting big. You don't Need a fancy storefront or a downtown office? Entrepreneurship means solving a problem and getting paid for it. At the time, I was good at fixing computers, so I started small, helping neighbors, friends, relatives. I made simple business, cards, and handed them out around the neighborhood. Sometimes I earned just a little, but it worked outside my regular work hours, and most importantly, there was no income ceiling. Gradually, I gained confidence, and that's when I also started studying investments. I used to think investing was just for millionaires, but I was completely wrong. I found out you could start small, sometimes with less than the cost of a pizza per month. I learned about dividend-paying stocks, real estate funds, even cryptocurrencies, and I started applying a rule Kiyosaki always repeated: pay yourself first. Instead of waiting to have money left at the end of the month, and there was never any left, I started putting aside a portion as soon as I got my paycheck. It wasn't much at first, but it was consistent. And you know what's magical? After a while, the investment started giving money back to me. Receiving dividends, even if just a few cents, felt like the universe was saying, you're on the right path. Entrepreneurship and investing aren't just ways to make more money. They're ways to change the game, to build something that keeps supporting you even when you're not there all the time. And when I understood that, I stopped being just an employee. I became the architect of my own freedom. It was at this point that I realized a truth no one had ever told me before. What truly separates the rich from the poor isn't money. It's mindset. It might sound cliché, but hear me out. While I was counting every penny, waiting for payday just to breathe again, there were people out there earning less than I did and still managing to save, invest, and grow. That puzzled me. How was that possible? The answer was in their thinking. The poor think, I'll spend now because I deserve it. The rich think, I'll invest now so I can enjoy life for the rest of my days. The difference was in how they viewed time. People with a poor mindset want instant rewards. People with a rich mindset think long term. They plant today, knowing the harvest will come and it will be much greater. I started watching what I did with my money the moment it hit my account. It was like it had legs. It ran away. I spent on useless things, on instant pleasures, only to spend the rest of the month complaining. That's when I made a decision. Enough of thinking small. If I wanted a different life, I needed to start acting like the people who had already achieved it. I started training my brain. Yes, literally. I wrote down powerful quotes from Kiyosaki and stuck them on my mirror, on the fridge, in my notebook. Quotes like, "The rich buy assets, the poor buy liabilities, thinking they are assets." And what does that mean? That many times we think we're buying something good, like a new car, but that thing only takes money out of our pockets instead of putting it in. I learned that an asset is anything that puts money into your account, and a liability is anything that takes money out. From that moment on, before spending anything, I'd ask myself, will this make me richer or poorer? It was no longer about whether I had money or not. It was about whether I had the right mindset. And little by little, this shift in thinking started showing up in my results. Because when you start thinking like the rich, sooner or later, you become one. That part of the journey was a true turning point for me. Because that's when I understood why so many adults, after years of working hard, are still broke. The truth is simple but harsh. No one taught us how to deal with money. Think about it. You spent years in school learning formulas, historical, dates, equations you may never use. But did they teach you how to make a budget, how to invest, how to get out of debt or build wealth? Of course not. And you know why? Because school was designed to create good employees, not owners of their own destiny. When Kiyosaki said that in his book, it felt like a jolt. I looked at my life and realized I was exactly where the system wanted me to be. Working hard, earning little, in debt, with no time, no energy, and no perspective. But instead of getting angry at the system, I decided to do what the rich do, educate myself. That week I committed to one simple thing, reading 10 pages a day of any book about money. It might sound small, but it completely changed the way I saw the world. I read books about investing, entrepreneurship, financial organization, emotional intelligence. I discovered that wealth starts in the mind, not in the pocket. And you know what else? I started looking for people who were already on that path. I watched free lectures on YouTube, joined groups, went to local events. Ordinary people, just like me, but a few steps ahead. They shared tips that weren't in books, real tips from people who had fallen, gotten back up and learned from it. And it was with them that I heard a phrase I'll never forget. If you think education is expensive, try the cost of ignorance. Not learning about money can cost you decades of your life. It can keep you trapped in a cycle where money comes in and disappears, where debt grows and financial freedom seems like a fantasy. Financial education is like learning a new language, the language of the rich. At first it seems hard, full of complicated terms, but if you're patient and keep going, soon you'll start to understand, and more importantly, start to think differently. The most beautiful part is, no one can take that knowledge away from you. You might lose your job, the economy might change, everything might collapse, but if you have financial intelligence, you'll always find a way. You'll always know how to start over, and it all starts with one simple step: taking responsibility for your own education. If you don't do it, no one will do it for you. After opening my eyes to financial education came the reality check. I wasn't broke because I earned too little. I was broke because I spent too much. And that's a truth a lot of people don't want to face. In many people's minds, the salary is always the villain. Oh, if I earned twice as much, my life would be different. But the truth is, a lot of people earn well and are still broke, simply because they never learned to control their spending. When I read that part in Kiyosaki's book, I stopped everything. I grabbed paper and pen and started writing down everything, literally everything, I spent in a month, from the electricity bill to that casual $7.50 coffee I bought every day without thinking. And the result? Scary. I was letting almost 40% of my salary slip away on small, quiet things that, when added up, were draining my financial life. That's when it hit me. If I wanted a different future, I'd have to make different choices now. And no, I'm not talking about becoming stingy or living a miserable life. I'm talking about financial awareness, about looking at each expense and asking, does this bring me closer to freedom or further away from it? The first thing I did was cut the non-essentials, subscriptions I no longer used, impulse purchases, food delivery every weekend. All of that started to go. But the most interesting part? By cutting those expenses, I didn't lose quality of life. On the contrary, I started valuing the simple things so much more, cooking at home with my family, walking more, using creativity instead of my credit card. And you know what happened? Money started to pile up, something that had never happened before. But I didn't want that leftover money to turn into more spending, so I made a rule for myself. Every amount I saved would be redirected toward building assets. Remember the goal: make my passive income surpass my monthly expenses, and the lower the expenses, the faster I could reach that goal. It's like running a marathon with less weight on your back. Today, when I look back, I see it wasn't how much I earned that made me wealthy. It was how much I learned not to spend. And you know what's most inspiring about all of this? Anyone can start now. No matter how much you earn, there's always a way to cut back. And every dollar saved is a brick in the construction of your freedom. After I got my finances in order and cut unnecessary expenses, I realized something important. Just saving wasn't going to be enough to change my life. I needed to bring in money with more strength, with more volume. That's when I understood the importance of increasing my active income. But what exactly is active income? It's all the money you earn through your direct effort, your job salary, the freelance gigs you take, the services you provide. But the secret isn't just working more, it's working smarter and with strategy. When I committed to changing, I started studying every day. That transformed not only my mindset, but also the way I saw my own value in the market. I started asking myself serious questions. How can I be more useful at what I do? How can I become indispensable in my field? Am I charging what I'm really worth? These questions opened my mind. I began learning in-demand skills, the kind the market is actually looking for. I studied advanced Excel, digital marketing, public speaking, process organization, and even time management. Because of that, I became more valuable within the company I worked for, and new opportunities started to show up. In addition, I realized I could sell my time more strategically. Instead of accepting any job for any price, I started being more selective. I created a pricing table, organized my schedule, and used my evenings to serve online clients. Was it exhausting? Yes, but it was worth it. In just 1 year, my salary increased, and the side jobs were already bringing in stable extra income. And most importantly, I didn't let that new money turn into unnecessary spending. I had a plan. Every extra cent went straight into building my future. No buying a new car, no impulse shopping, no raising my lifestyle just because now I could. Increasing active income is about that, becoming more valuable, more useful, more prepared. The market rewards those who deliver more value. And when you combine that with good control over your spending, you stop just surviving. You truly start building. With active income going up and expenses under control, the next step was crucial. Make money work for me. For years, I lived the cycle I learned as a kid. Work, earn, spend. And when a little was left, I just let it sit in my account. What I didn't know was that this was like letting money sleep, and sleeping money doesn't grow. It was through studying finance that I learned what rich people do differently. They invest most of their profits in assets that generate more money. They understand that every dollar saved is a seed, and every well-planted seed can grow into a tree that bears fruit for many years. At first, I'll admit, I was scared. The investment world seemed complicated. I was afraid of losing the little I had worked so hard to earn, but little by little I kept studying and started with the basics. I learned what a real estate fund was, how government bonds worked, how companies paid dividends, and that investing wasn't gambling. It was planning for the future. I built my emergency fund so I wouldn't have to rely on credit cards or loans if something unexpected came up. After that, I began investing every leftover amount into income-generating assets, solid stocks, monthly income funds, and even rental properties. In the beginning, the amount seemed small, 10 reais here, 50 there, but with consistency and patience, I started to see the fruits. Those investments began to pay me every month. I no longer depended solely on my physical effort. The money was doing the work for me, and here comes the most important point. The more you invest, the faster you accelerate your freedom. Don't let your money sit idle. Don't fall into the temptation of spending just because a little extra came into your account. Do the opposite of what most people do. Invest, and invest wisely. Not because of hype or trends, but with focus, with strategy, and with long-term thinking. Today, I can say with peace of mind, it was when I learned to invest that my life truly started to change. Because investing is planting, and those who plant wisely harvest peacefully. If this content made sense to you, if any of these tips woke something up in you, inspired you, or gave you that spark you needed, don't keep it to yourself. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episodes of this journey toward financial freedom. And more than that, Share this video with someone you know who needs to hear. It could be a friend, a family member, someone who's always saying there's never money left at the end of the month. This simple gesture might be the beginning of a financial transformation in someone's life. After all, when we learn, we grow. But when we share, we multiply. See you in the next video, where we'll talk about how to diversify your income streams and protect what you're building. See you then.